For a man who was once definitely beaten by Jared Gordon, it's fair to say we have seen quite a bit of evolution from Paddy Pimblett. I know what you're thinking, his last 3 wins have been against guys out of their prime. This is absolutely true. However, this is often the case for up-and-comers. They have to fight the old guard, which holds the upper spots in the rankings. Ignoring Paddy's opponents for a moment and simply watching him, there has been clear evolution in his abilities as a fighter. In today's video, we will go over those improvements while breaking down how Paddy Pimblett dominated Michael Chandler. In fighting, there are many different factors which make up a great fighter. Some are genetic and difficult, if not impossible to change, like speed, eyes, height, reach, etc. However, some factors can be improved upon. 2 of the most important factors that make up a great fighter are tactics and technique. Both are very important, but is one more important than the other? As an exercise, let's take a fighter like Petr Yan, who has supreme technique in both striking and grappling. Then, let's take Merab Dvalishvili. Yes, Merab has unbelievable cardio, but Merab, technique for technique, is worse almost everywhere. What made that fight one of the most dominant performances in UFC history was Merab's tactics. Merab's main tactic of constantly shooting takedowns was so effective against Yan for many reasons. One is Yan's measured start. Merab could shoot without much coming back in the early going because of Yan's tendency to start slow. Number 2 is Yan's close range preference. Yan prefers to land his offense in close range and in combination. Because of this, he would be in range for takedowns. Number 3 is Yan's defensive tendencies. Yan's main defensive reaction is the high guard, which 1 blinds his vision and 2 opens up the path for the takedown. You can see how Merab's tactics, which were specifically suited to his opponent, helped him in getting the victory. So how does this apply to Paddy? Well, when Paddy strikes, it isn't pretty. His chin is often up in the air with his hands down by his side. His boxing in particular would certainly be frowned upon in a pure boxing gym. But Paddy and his team take studying fights seriously. So let's explore the tactics that Paddy used against Chandler. The fight starts, and the first strike Paddy throws is the jab. This weapon is at its best when used by the taller fighter to keep a shorter fighter at range. Given Paddy's size advantage in the matchup, employing the jab is tactically a good decision. Then Paddy immediately gets going with the low kicks. With Michael's stance being very wide and low, this leaves him susceptible. In the past, fighters have found great success employing them against Chandler. This is another good tactical decision, which is complemented by the fact that Paddy has a good kicking game. This is the ideal outcome, that where your opponent has flaws, you have strengths. It isn't always that the strengths and weaknesses line up, but the more well-rounded you are as a fighter, the higher the likelihood is of it happening. With Paddy using his long-range weapons and kicking the leg, he was keeping Chandler at the range he preferred. Another good tactic for Pimblett was his feints. Pimblett was constantly showing Chandler his rear hip to keep his mind occupied and on defense. It's not a good idea to be constantly throwing to keep your opponent at range. This will obviously, 1, gas you out, but if they start to pick up on your strikes and when they are coming, they can get a step ahead of you. By Paddy incorporating these feints successfully alongside his actual weapons, it was freezing Chandler. A little over a minute in though, Chandler backed Pimblett against the cage. This, if it wasn't, should have been a main tactic for Chandler. When the shorter, more powerful fighter can put their taller opponent against the cage wall, it eliminates their best defense, which is backing straight out of range. And it forces them into an exchange that they don't want to be having. If you are in an exchange that you don't want to be in, you are uncomfortable, which means usually you're on the losing end of that exchange. From here, Pimblett tried to land a low kick, which Chandler countered with a takedown. Chandler would control Pimblett against the cage here for around 2 minutes, but Pimblett would get to his feet and then jump the triangle. This is a move which has led to a submission victory for Paddy in the past, but not this time. Upon landing, Chandler was able to put his head over top of Pimblett's head, which completely shut down any threat of the triangle. But then, Pimblett used the triangle threat again this time to get back to his feet. See here how Pimblett shoots his left leg up to threaten the triangle. In response, Chandler postures up, which allows Pimblett the space to insert a knee shield across the body of Chandler. He uses this to push Chandler away and build up to his feet. Pimblett got back to his game plan on the feet of long punches and low kicks. He did eat a counter right hand when he failed to properly set up his low kick. But as he says,
"I'm a scouser, you don't get knocked out."
Pimblett would dominate the last minute of the round by putting Chandler on the defense the whole time, commanded the octagon space, and wasn't getting backed up against the fence. For the first 2 minutes of the second round, the action on the feet is playing out just how Paddy envisioned it, using his long-range weapons, his low kicks, and his feints to freeze Chandler, while outpointing him. It was a bit after the 2-minute mark when Chandler again started to close the octagon down on Paddy. From here, Chandler could shoot and control Paddy against the cage. This time, however, that control was more short-lived. Chandler tried to get a hook in and fell off the top of the back, which got him in the bottom position. With Pimblett on top and closed guard, it was time for him to showcase his jiu-jitsu superiority. With Chandler having nothing resembling a competent guard, he just kind of tried to explode. Pimblett countered by threatening an arm triangle, which controls the upper body of Chandler and allows him to easily step into half guard. Pimblett uses that control to flatten Chandler out, putting his shoulders on the mat, and with nothing resembling a competent half guard, Pimblett easily moved to side control. Pimblett spent a little bit of time here simply controlling Chandler, but then he moved back into the half guard to better control the legs. From here, he could posture up and land some elbows. They were mostly defended, but then Pimblett moved into, you guessed it, the crossbody half guard. From here, Chandler's ability to get to an underhook is completely gone, and really the only way to escape from here is to turn into your opponent and look to establish frames. Chandler attempted to trap and roll, grabbing Pimblett's left leg and bridging hard, but he didn't create any separation from Paddy's hips. Because of this, Paddy beautifully transitioned into taking the back and sunk that second hook in. Paddy quickly shifts his weight back and establishes over-under control with his arms. Chandler very quickly and smartly isolates one arm with the 2-on-1. Chandler clears the arm to the non-choking side, and this removes the possibility for Pimblett to get the rear naked choke, at least for now. Paddy does a great job of following Chandler from this position and using his free hand as a post to maintain the top position. Pimblett weaseled his hand free from Chandler's 2-on-1 and then started unleashing heavy elbows. This was the end of the round, and it was a dominant one for Paddy Pimblett. To open up the third round, Chandler may have been feeling the pressure of finding some success of his own. He started to get more aggressive in his attempts to close the distance. On 3 occasions in the first 20 seconds, Chandler entered into range, dipping his head very low, and the third time was the charm. Pimblett had seen it twice before, and now it was time to capitalize upon it with a precise knee, which split the guard of Chandler and also split his face open. From here, Chandler was in complete retreat mode, with Pimblett tracking him down and looking for the finish. Chandler lashed out and landed an okay right hand, then Pimblett smartly dropped down to the hips and took Chandler down with the single leg. From here, Pimblett did a great job of doing something that Hamzat does better than anyone, which is leg riding. There are many different leg rides, and there's great videos out there breaking it down, but I think this one is just the inside hook leg ride, and when you pin your opponent against the cage, like Paddy has done it to Chandler here, it makes it almost impossible to get up to your feet. From here, Pimblett was doing great damage and eventually flattened Chandler out, and it wasn't long before Chandler's face was a bloody mess and the ref was stopping the fight. So let's recap how Pimblett got it done. Number 1 is tactics over technique. Pimblett, although his technique at times looks quite crappy, displayed great tactics inside the octagon that were tailored specifically to his opponent's weaknesses. This reminds us of the importance of studying our opponents. Number 2 is the jiu-jitsu advantage. Once the fight got to the ground, Pimblett showed his jiu-jitsu superiority, and when they got into grappling scrambles, he was always the one coming out on top. So can Paddy formulate more perfect tactics to defeat the upper echelon of the lightweight division? Only time will tell. But one thing is for certain, he is definitely not a scrub or a fraud. Paddy is a legit, dangerous fighter who deserves the respect of those who will compete against him.